Design in Architecture, Landscape Architecture, and Urbanism. I'm Joe Damon. I'm an associate professor here at the School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, which we'll refer to as SALA, here at UBC, and I'm also the chair of the program. And before we get started, I'd like to begin with something that we do pretty frequently here at UBC, which is to give a land acknowledgement. And this is of special importance here in the Bachelor of Design program, where we think a lot about the importance of place, of tradition, and history. And so I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here on the ancestral unceded territory of the Musqueam First Nation, who have lived and worked here from time immemorial, and we're very grateful to be uninvited guests on this land and to share in living and learning in this place. And if you're joining us by Zoom, I'd like to just say that you can take a moment and think about whatever traditions are in the place from which you're joining us, and just pause for a moment to reflect on what that means before we get going. Okay, so I'll just begin by a brief overview of the schedule today, which is going to begin here. We're actually in the Aquatic Ecosystem Research Laboratory building. This is the AERL Theater. So you're actually doing an open house for the BDES program, not in BDES, for the first half an hour or so. But then we'll walk, after we do, I'll talk for about a half an hour. We'll hear from some current BDES students to give you a sense of what it's like in the program and their experience. You'd probably rather hear from them than me anyway. And we'll make some time for Q&A. I know that many of you might have questions about how to apply and what we're looking for in this thing called the Creative Challenge. After that, we'll walk over to the BDES studios in the McMillan building. It's about a 5-minute walk, pretty close by. We've got some pizza. If you'd like to join us over there, you can walk through this thing we call the Design Studio, which is where a lot of the magic happens in BDES. That's the studio refers to both a place where it happens, but also the kind of, basically it's sort of like the main academic component of the program. It happens in the design studio. So you can look at that, meet with some students, eat some pizza, and we'll wrap it up by about 7 p.m. And so I guess, as I mentioned, we've got a fairly large contingent joining us on Zoom. So normally I'd say, please interrupt me at any time with questions, but I think it's probably better to keep the questions until the end when we have time set aside for those. So just before we get started, I'd like to know what somebody's gonna tell me before they tell me. So I thought I'd just begin by talking about what design is, because some of you might not be so familiar with what it means to be a designer in today. Then move on to why study it at UBC. There are some unique things about our program that make it especially worthwhile here that I'd like to touch on. We'll hear from some students about BDES student life, which is pretty unique here at UBC. We'll talk a little bit at a kind of high level about the BDES curriculum to give you a sense of what's involved in that. Talk a little about career opportunities, hear from some co-op, at least one co-op student via video, because she's in Alberta on her co-op. Then talk about the application process, and then time for Q&A. Seems like a lot to get through. Let's get started. Hopefully it won't seem too long. So what is this thing we call design? Well, it's all around us. Design is how we shape the environment around us. So we spend about 90% or more of our time in industrialized countries inside. And every one of those spaces has been designed. Even when you're outside, most of the landscapes you're in have been designed. So design is all around us, and it's how we shape that environment. We can look at design and see actually what differentiates us as a species. Human beings begin to be regarded as human, distinct from the apes around the time 40, 50,000 years ago when they begin to design flint implements. And so you can look at design as being very closely tied to the earliest emergence of humanity, what we understand to be human. And so design actually connects humans to other species in a way, connects us to our ancestors, but can also in contemporary context actually connect us to natural environments through landscapes and even buildings, like this skyscraper in Italy. Design responds to practical concerns. So you can think about the pragmatic aspects of architecture. This building to operate, this room to kind of come together has to stand up. It has to keep the weather out. It has to be lit such that we can kind of communicate and meet each other within the space. So there are many practical concerns, but it also embodies our highest aspirations. And so you can think about a church, a medieval church, as stretching, trying to stretch, the steeple stretches closer to God. And so it's actually pragmatic in one sense, but it's far more than simply pragmatism. It's irreducible to pragmatic concerns and the materials from which it's made. It actually embodies our highest aspirations. It's also changing. So the global building stock, that's to say all the buildings in the world will double by 2050. That's a staggering amount of building to house global humanity. And in fact, we want everybody from an ethical perspective to have a fair and beautiful and functional shelter, a safe place to live. And that's going to require building a lot more buildings. And that comes with environmental consequences, because even today, the built environment produces about 40% of all the global anthropogenic carbon dioxide. That's to say, carbon dioxide from human sources comes from our buildings, both the materials to construct them, keeping the lights on, heating them, heating the water we use to shower. That's 40% of global carbon emissions. That's a staggering number for a single source. And it means that as designers, we can have a major impact on our ecological footprint as a species. So designers actually also hold our cultural memory. So just as the genetics contains the biological memories of the human species, in our genetic information, we can think about all of the buildings we build as actually containing our cultural memory. We're engaged in something that's not just about how sticks and bricks come together to create buildings or landscapes or urban environments, but actually collectively, this is a kind of cultural contribution of humanity. And so all that means that designers will play an absolutely catalytic role in determining the future of the planet, both from a kind of an ethical perspective about fair housing, about ecological justice, about how the impact we make on the planet, about the types of buildings we build, and how we come together and meet in these design spaces. It's an absolutely critical role, and it's something I feel really passionately. It's what gets me up in the morning and what keeps me so excited about what we do here at SALA, at the School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, and especially in the Bachelor of Design program. Because the students, you guys, are actually, you've heard this before probably, but you are the future. We've gotten this wrong a lot in the past, but we're at a unique point in history where there's actually, like, you can't but look outside and see the need to kind of change the way we're approaching our built environment. And you can be a part of that here in the BDES program or in other programs. But why study design at UBC, you might ask? So I'm going to play a 1.5-minute video that answers this question pretty well.
We all dream of making a mark on the world. But what if we had the power to really do it? The new Bachelor of Design in Architecture, Landscape Architecture, and Urbanism from the University of British Columbia can turn dreams into reality with a cross-disciplinary education in design. It is the only program of its kind in Canada, offered by one of the highest-ranked architecture and landscape architecture schools in the country, at one of the top universities in the world. Learn alongside a select cohort of other creative minds in one of the most inspiring places on Earth. Be curious, push boundaries, learn how to make change through design with Vancouver as your living lab. Graduate with a deep understanding of how ideas and materials come together to create the built environment. Imagine the world you want to live in and create it with UBC's Bachelor of Design. The future is limitless. Are you ready to design yours? Visit sala.ubc.ca.
Let's drill down a little bit on what some of the claims are in that video, which we made 3 or 4 years ago. When we launched, we became a 4-year program about 5 years ago. We just graduated the first class actually this past spring. Before that, it was a 2-year program. But I'd say one of the things that makes the program so special, which I really appreciate as the chair, is how excellent the students are. We'll get into some of the kind of like, I actually wish we could admit more students. It's a highly selective program, but part of what that means is that if you're a student in BDES, you are really highly accomplished by the time you get there, and it makes for a really unique and dynamic student body, which does fantastic work and is highly committed. That's matched by an accomplished faculty that does some really amazing work. So there's a lot of faculty research that's been really kind of globally significant. So UBC, as you're probably aware, is a top 50 global university, and it's actually, SALA is the #1 architecture program in Canada by rankings. The research done by faculty is actually globally significant as well in all sorts of areas around housing equity, around new materials, around new construction methods. We also really look at design from a transdisciplinary perspective, which is to say, we are somewhat unique in Canada in that we're taking all aspects of the built environment. So we're looking at architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design all together. And so it's a truly transdisciplinary program that's not caught up in sort of professional requirements of one or the other of those areas. We're also informed by contemporary design. So we're really driven not so much, we do look at history, and history is a big component of the curriculum, as you'll see, but we're also really following kind of contemporary trends in design that keeps us kind of up to date with what's going on within the kind of design culture around the world. Another thing that's pretty unique here is that we make a lot of use of collaborative pedagogies. That's to say, a lot of group projects working together, learning to kind of work on diverse teams together on projects. So we're project driven and often collaborative. We have lots of opportunities for hands-on experiential learning. So we do a lot of site visits. We visit construction sites, new projects. So that's a big part of the curriculum. We have state-of-the-art design facilities. So we've got some really great collaborative spaces where you'll do your work, and we'll visit some of those today. Cutting-edge design tools. We have 3D printers, laser cutters, a whole host of different means to kind of fabricate. We also have a wood shop, hand tools, so that you can kind of learn the basics of operating machine tools to kind of create models and actually full-scale prototypes. These are just some examples of digital outputs. So we make a lot of use of 3D printers and that sort of thing. We have access to the Center for Advanced Wood Processing. So as an R1, what's called an R1 research university, we have access to all sorts of really amazing facilities here. So this is one that's sponsored by Canadian Forestry Initiative and the KUKA industrial robot that students have used in the past. So we've got some really unique facilities. But to get back to the students, I think like what makes us really unique is this kind of like cohort of highly dedicated students. And so I've asked a few of them to come here today to share their experience with you. And I know at least a couple of them have been in design reviews not even half an hour ago. So they've rushed across campus to be with us. And so I guess we'll hear first from Amanda and Tristan. You guys want to come on up? Let's give them a round of applause. Like we don't have a, do you want this microphone? Here. Put this on. Who's talking first? Yeah, sorry, we don't remember.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so although the BDES program can be quite rigorous at times, many students here are still able to achieve a great work-life balance. So whether we're creating, collaborating on projects in studio, grabbing coffee with friends, or taking time to recharge at Kitsilano Beach, our student life is just as dynamic and vibrant as the designs that we create. Our tight-knit class sizes means that you'll know everyone in your cohort on a first-name basis, which really creates a really unique sense of community and belonging that you won't find in any other discipline. We spend so much time together, and I'm confident that you'll make lifelong friends in your time at the BDES program like I did. As design students, we also understand the value of documenting our experiences. So today I've structured this presentation around moments captured through B-Reels to give you a quick glimpse into our journey from our first year in the BDES program to now.
To start, we'll share a little bit about ourselves. Hi, my name is Tristan Senevarate, and I'm in my third year of the BDES program. I'm actually not from Vancouver, I'm from Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm also in my third year at the BS program. And a fun fact about me is my last name is actually pronounced meow, but I'm a dog person.
Here are a couple images of us with friends in class. The first one on the left is when we were doing a precedent study for our materials culture class. And the second one over there is right after our first studio review for DES 201, which is our first studio in the program called Context and Site. As you can deduce, our small class sizes help us form a tight-knit community with our peers. We're not just colleagues, we're more than that. We're friends, they're our biggest support system, and they're our greatest cheerleaders.
Next is us taking breaks from our studio work. So one of my favorite ways to take a break is by grabbing coffee in between classes. Fortunately, there's a cafe near every year studio, which is amazing. And one of my favorite cafes is the Beanery near the Fairview Crescent residence. So if you have a chance, please give it a visit. After a long studio review, my cohort also loves to celebrate with a dinner outing. And one of my favorite spots on campus or near campus is Kokoro. And it always feels amazing celebrating a day of hard work with some of my closest friends.
Here's a site visit that we went to for our second design studio titled Form. We actually visited one of the theaters on campus because we were designing exterior performance spaces, which was really cool. We got to see the inside of the theater, how it works, the different rooms, trap doors, the other components that make up a performance space. What's really interesting about our program is our site visits take us to places where we would normally not venture off to and understand what makes those spatial environments significant and useful in our lives. And with that knowledge, we're able to design and create spaces ourselves where we can foster those communities and the engagement that they dwell upon. And then the other picture is Amanda in the workshop for our material culture class, was it? Where we learned a lot about different materials in the built environment and how to use them to create composite systems and other fabrication means.
And then lastly, we have some more fun moments. So one is us doing a quick badminton game at the Student Recreation Center. And this is the perfect way to recharge, in my opinion. In our second year, we would form small groups to do some drop-ins, and that really added to the active component of our program. And when we need a bigger break, sometimes we would also celebrate, for example, our friend's birthday at Kitsilano Beach. And honestly, these moments and the connection to nature just reminds me of why we love and appreciate studying in Vancouver.
Looking back at these B-reels, it's clear how much our personal experiences, whether working hard in studio or taking time to recharge, have shaped our growth as designers. We hope this glimpse into our lives as BDES students shows the creativity, dedication, and community that define our journey. Thank you for joining us in reliving these moments. We're excited to continue documenting our lives as design students and seeing where the journey takes us.
Very much. So our next speaker is going to talk to you about student-led initiatives. This is the president of the DESIS, which is the Design
Undergraduate Society.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Lizzie. I'm in my fourth year of the Bachelor of Design program, and I'll be talking to you guys about the student-led initiatives. So one of the student-led initiatives we have are our film nights, where we provide bubble tea for all the students and put on a show some shows we've put on in the past. A lot of them have been Studio Ghibli. I don't know if you guys are into that or know about it, but that's one that we hold monthly or bi-monthly. Another one that we have are our Waffle Wednesdays. These have been in the program since the beginning, where every other Wednesday we provide waffles for all the students, and now we provide paninis as well. So that's a really fun way to get together with all the students in the studio, have a quick bite, and talk about fun things you are working on. And then we also, as Amanda and Tristan were talking about, are very active also. We do some sports and outdoor activities. We recently had an inter-faculty cup where design students were able to compete against other faculties. It was very fun, very exciting, some tug of war, some beanbag racing. And then, of course, we're design students, so we also hold our own version of a design competition where we have some pumpkin carving and also some gingerbread building competitions. And we have also done like a Minecraft design build competition in the past as well, which was super fun. And then, yeah, so these events are all hosted by DESIS, which is the Design Undergrad Society, which I'm a part of, and also Amanda and Tristan are also a part of. And it's a really excellent way for you to get involved with the community and like get to know the faculty and also the students. It's given me the opportunity to grow my organization skills, my communication skill, and also get to know students across all 4 years. So if you guys do end up being in the BDES program, I highly suggest getting involved with the Student Society. And then another group that I want to talk to you guys about is NOMAS, which is the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students. This is another student-led initiative that I'm a part of, which we get to participate in a yearly design competition every year. Last year, I was able to go to Portland with a team of design students, and this year I was able to go to Baltimore. It's really fun. You get to participate and meet a bunch of architecture students from all over the United States. So that's a really, really great opportunity. And we are the only school in all of Canada that has a NOMAS chapter. So yeah, that's all from me for student-led initiatives. And these are ways that you can get connected. And if you want to keep track of what other initiatives we are planning and other things like that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so that's really great glimpse into BDES student life, and it really is a vibrant community. It's really nice to see how invested the students are in their own projects, but also in the kind of broader design culture. Culture is a big part of design. So it's not all waffles and what was it? Waffles and it wasn't. I want to say chickens and waffles, but it wasn't chicken. Paninis and waffles. It's not all paninis and waffles. We actually do work pretty hard, and it's a pretty rigorous curriculum. It's actually a big responsibility to design buildings, landscapes, and urban environments. And so we have a pretty ambitious class schedule. We'll just kind of look at this, gives you a sense of the range of classes that we take. You won't be responsible for all of them in the 4 years of the Bachelor of Design program. So you can see that there's actually, it will be some of the options. We'll go through year by year in a kind of cursory way so you can see what's involved. But across the top is the kind of design stream, which is really sort of like the kitchen of the program. It's where the important cooking happens and where a lot of the kind of the meat of the credits occur. And so this is this thing called the design studio, where you'll spend somewhere on the order of 6 all the way up to 12 hours of credit hours a week in the design studio. And so these are typically collaborative projects. Some of them will be individual, but you'll get a studio brief, which might be to design. Well, I was in a review this afternoon of some great work that the third year BDES Studio 301 was doing, that was looking at designing a mixed-use housing development in downtown Vancouver. And so that was the project, and the students were kind of like working away at what that might mean. Lots of really interesting projects. So that's the blue stripe across the top. Then there's a history and theory component, because we actually take kind of the history of the built environment quite seriously, as well as the theory. So this is just sort of like contemporary design movements. You can think about like art history, what you might learn in a course like that, or art theory. So what are the kind of ideas informing the way we approach design, because these change over time. Then going down to the light green, and I've got to put my glasses on, technology is a big part of design. So we spend some time looking at the technologies that go into the built fabric. Design media, now in yellow, we've got 4 classes of which you need 9 credits, so you need 3 of those 4 during your 4 years. And that's actually like things like graphic design programs, so 3D modeling, Rhinoceros or Photoshop, Illustrator, the tools we use to communicate through design. We still draw a fair amount by hand, but we no longer use very much sort of drafting implements. We do it all using digital tools, and so that's where you've learned that. Then finally, there's a professional development stream. So this is in orange, and the minimum here is 3 credits, but there are actually opportunities if you're really interested in going into professional architecture, landscape architecture, or urban planning. You can actually do a co-op and graduate with a co-op designation on your diploma if you do 3 segments of 4 months each. So it actually adds a year, but it gives you practical work experience. So you can actually gather some really great work experience so that when you graduate, you've already been in the workforce. And many of our students go on to full-time employment after that with those firms that they work with through co-op. And then at the bottom is other. So those are just some kind of collected things. Let's go through and look at actually what it looks like year by year. So actually, so this is chronologically reading from the left. In the first year, you'll actually spend a fair bit of that year doing what we consider sort of distribution requirements. So to be an architect, a landscape architect, an urban planner, any one of the other kind of professions that this could lead to, you still need to be able to write proposals. You need to be able to read history. You need to be able to formulate a compelling argument. And so you get that by taking language classes, English classes across UBC. So some of those are outside the BDES program. And we weight most of those are in the first year. So there's also a geography requirement as well as an elective. So basically you're learning to kind of be a scholar in a general sense alongside some BDES classes. So you can see them in blue. Design thinking is kind of about the fundamental way we approach design. It's a fantastic class and intake. Architecture and context. You'll take DES 130, design, culture, and ecology to kind of combine the way we approach design with ecological concerns. So you're kind of doing that in an integrated way. Measured architectural drawing to learn representational techniques to set you up for a studio. And then lastly, a kind of foundational studio media course to kind of learn those representational techniques. So that takes you through the first year. In the second year, the studio sequence starts in earnest. And this means that you'll actually have a place in this thing called the design studio, which you'll visit around 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock tonight, which is the place where the kind of collaborative learning happens. It's where you're making drawings, where you're working on models, you're building things. It's basically kind of where you'll spend a lot of your time. And you can see that there's actually, those are 6 credit studios in the first year. They actually increased to 9 credits, so they become a little bit more serious in year 3. And then you'll take some history, also some site analysis, so how to come onto a site, kind of do the sort of analysis to understand the histories, traditions, real and discursive forces on the site, to think about, what are the environmental forces and that sort of thing. And then you'll get in that second year, also in yellow, the design media, so that you really have the tools of representation, so you have what you need to kind of develop your proposals and represent them. Then in the third year, you're in design studios again. You've got design theory, and landscape architectural history, so looking at the history of how we've approached landscape from a design perspective, structural systems and support, so these are the kind of pragmatic aspects of what makes this building stand up and not fall down on us. And then you'll have a few electives in that third year as well, so you have 1 elective each term, and that can be across a whole range of options, not only within the design program, but across UBC. And then going into the fourth year, basically you have a studio in the fall and then an independent project in the spring, where you get to kind of define your own project, either on your own or in collaboration with other students. It's sort of your choice. We're big on project-based learning, urbanism classes, environment and urban form. So we're really kind of building from a more fundamental understanding of buildings and landscapes all the way up through kind of how they come together to make the cities that we live in urban environments. And lastly, in orange, is a class I actually taught for the first time. I just rolled it out last spring, and it was fantastic. The students were so amazing, but this is ethics and entrepreneurship in design. I have a background as an entrepreneur, and my own bias, I thought maybe the students would be, as I was, really interested in how to apply design to entrepreneurship, because it's excellent training for that. If you follow any kind of entrepreneurship, in the last 10 years, they've been talking a lot about design thinking and its importance. What surprised me was that the students were so engaged with the ethics part of that question. It actually really filled me with hope about our future, because I really wanted to know how the built fabric could be actually a more ethical place and how design could be used to make it that way. So that's the kind of curriculum in a nutshell. This is necessarily pretty high level, but we wanted to give you a sense of what you can expect from a curriculum perspective, and I imagine there'll be some questions about that, so please hang on to them until the end. We've also got a really robust program of extracurriculars. So these are things that are not necessarily, we can't require you to go study abroad, for instance, but there are opportunities to do that. And we'll hear from a student in a few moments about her experience in Japan. There's design build. There's often opportunities to participate with graduate students in the programs. This one was right here on campus. You may have walked by it. It's still at the center of campus. This was all timber that was going to be actually chipped up from a campus housing development that with students actually built into a really compelling pavilion. So that's a really unique opportunity for kind of hands-on learning. And these happen in an ad hoc way because they kind of respond to opportunities, but there's generally one or two of them going on at any given time at SALA. This was a BDES one actually down as part of the Powell Street Festival downtown on the downtown east side. Students have even built at Vancouver Design Week. They've gotten on their own initiative. They got a commission to do the Azure booth, which is a prominent design magazine. And so they designed and then constructed this a few years back. So I've invited Lucy Zhang to come and talk about her experience in Japan. And so I'll ask her to come up and do her thing. So let's give Lucy a round of applause.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucy Zhang and I am currently a third year in the BDES program. So this past summer I had the incredible opportunity to go to the SALA Japan trip. So just to quickly explain what the SALA Japan trip is that like every year during May, after our classes are over in April, there is these study abroad programs that we can apply to. So last year it was in Venice and Japan, and this year I believe is in Sardinia, Italy, and Scandinavia. So a little bit about what led me to BDES was I've always loved art, 3D design, and creating things for people. And I've also really like the technical side of design and like having almost rules and boundaries that like guide you to create things. So BDES was really attractive to me because it's not just about designing something cool and looks good. It's also about like understanding the context, environment, the people that you're building for, and like we're always encouraged to like think about why we design. And also like the chance to collaborate with like amazing people, my amazing classmates. It's like super amazing. Okay, so Japan trip. Next slide, please.
You can just do it here.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll be the advancer. All right. There we go.
Okay, so the study abroad trip was led by Professor Bill Peckett and Lauren Spass, who are both incredible people. They're super fun, super funny, and so much fun to learn from. So the trip lasted about a month, and we were a group of about 20 students, including not just BDES students, but also students from the Masters of Architecture and Landscape Architecture Design programs. So like getting to know them, talk to them was also like super helpful, super like knowledgeable, like it was such a great learning experience. And we visited Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. So we explored every day. We would go on like these noodles, we call them. Like every noodle was a different theme. We one of the noodles were like alleyways, and another noodle was like cities in the sky, and one noodle was even like a camping noodle. So like for every noodle, we'd explore like buildings that are both traditional and modern. So not only did we get to see the architecture up close, we also got to like experience it in a personal way. So one of the most memorable moments we had was when our professors rented a traditional Japanese house, as you can see it there. And we cooked nagashi somen together, which is the noodles that you slide down this bamboo tube and then you try to catch them as they slide down and then you get to eat them. And it was just such a unique way and fun way to experience the culture and connect with the space. Okay.
Just the down arrow.
Okay. So experiencing architecture in real life was like a completely different experience from seeing it from photos and drawings, which we do so much in our program. So you notice like all sorts of different things that you do from photographs, like how light reflects off different textures and like how sound travels through a space. Like along with our amazing professors explaining each aspect along the way, like I gained so much from that trip and like it really changed how I think about design. So another way that I really connected with spaces was like by sketching, like by slowing down and like taking time to understand the details and explore like these little things that you might not notice normally. It's like really helpful. So if you're really interested in pursuing architecture, I suggest you would sketch things and also go experience spaces in person. So yeah. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I am also a transfer from the second year, so if you guys have like any questions about that, because transferring from second year is a little bit more different than just applying from first year, or like if you have any questions in general, I'll be so happy to answer them. Like, please reach out, contact me. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Lucy. And as Lucy mentioned, she'll join us later in the evening. So if you do have questions, please feel free to seek her out. We also, I mentioned we have a, well, actually I didn't mention, I was thinking to go up, but we have actually a coordinated international exchange. So if you're interested in study abroad, we have 17 partner institutions across Europe, Asia, and Australia. Where you can do a term abroad. You're actually not limited to these 17 institutions. You actually, Go Global has a much wider list of places that you can go do that. These are just the ones that is like sort of the easiest ones. The others take a little bit more doing.
Hi, my name is Ivy and I'm a fourth year BDES student. I went on the Coordinated International Exchange Program in the second semester of my third year to the University of Hong Kong. So my favorite part about being on exchange was meeting people who also study architecture, learning about how they practice design, and visiting historical sites with a local perspective in mind. So during the 5 months that I was there in HKU, I used their really high-tech design fabrication tools and also took courses relating to their local building typologies. Some advice I would have for students who might want to become BDES students and also go on exchange is to try things that you never thought you would try. And overall, exchange was a very memorable experience for me, and I would recommend going to Hong Kong if you really enjoy food.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm a fourth year BDES student. I went on CIE during my second term in my third year to the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. I took 2 landscape architecture courses and 1 architecture course. I thought it was very interesting to learn new things in a different setting and by different professors through different perspectives. Some of my favorite parts of Sydney was exploring the city, meeting new people from all over the world, and also trying new things. I was able to learn how to surf at the famous Bondi Beach, and I was able to take a tour around the Sydney Opera House. I also joined a couple of extracurricular clubs, which I would very much recommend doing if you do go on exchange. I joined a running club and I was able to explore different parts of the city that I wouldn't have experienced by myself. I also made a lot of new friends and would definitely recommend going on exchange, as it was one of the best times of my life.
Hi, my name is Mira. I did my exchange at the University of Melbourne in Australia. My favorite class while studying abroad was the architecture studio. I got to learn about a lot of different local building materials and building styles, which just expanded my knowledge of what architecture could be. My other favorite class was a transport planning class. Melbourne is world renowned for its public transport and livability, especially for students. So it was really cool to experience how they planned that and how it works firsthand just by riding the trams into the city and back to the university. The other cool opportunity exchange gives you is it gives you the opportunity to travel to a place you've never been before. I was able to travel to a couple different countries in my 5 months abroad, and it gave me just a really cool, well-rounded experience and just more connections in the world. I got to meet so many cool people, see so many cool things. Overall, it was an amazing experience. If you can fit it into your degree here at UBC and in the BDes program, please make an effort to do so.
Move on to co-op, which I mentioned, and so we'll hear from Yamna Omer, who is away in Alberta right now, but talking about her co-op experience.
Hi everyone, my name is Yamna Omer. I finished my third year of architecture Bachelor of Design program. I decided to take part in the co-op program to gain hands-on experience, especially the kind that comes from practicing in a professional setting, which is something that's hard to replicate in school. I've learned a lot about the gap between academia and the workplace, throughout the first 3 years of school. I've heard a lot about it, but I never really got to experience what it is until starting co-op. Especially that architecture is often, thought of as an apprenticeship program. And that's how it started as a field. But I wanted to bridge that gap before graduating so I could achieve two things. One, be more hireable and be prepared when I'm applying for jobs. And two, to explore the different areas within design and architecture to find what excites me the most. We have architecture, urbanism, landscape. My friends ended up going to all different sorts of co-ops, but it's good that you get that variety. My first co-op experience was at IKEA, which is so fun, as a visual merchandiser / store designer. There I learned about store layouts, guiding customer behavior, and using design as a powerful marketing tool. It was such a unique opportunity to see how design functions in a commercial setting. IKEA has this vibrant and collaborative culture, which made it a truly memorable experience. And I gained a lot of insight into interior design and the furniture industry, which are closely related to architecture. Currently, I'm working at Arcadis IBI Group in Calgary, Alberta. I'm part of the team developing this development permit set for a mid-rise residential wood frame project in Victoria, BC, all while working remotely from the Calgary office. This experience has shown me that architecture has become this hybrid work model industry, offering flexibility while maintaining collaboration across cities and projects. It's exciting to be part of a large-scale mixed-use project like this and to contribute to its design and planning. Through this role, I've also learned about the technical side of architecture, which is very interesting. You don't really hear about it much in school because we don't have to deal with it as students. But once you're working in a collaborative team, you really have to know, how to file manage, how to work with construction assemblies, and the various stages of project development, whether it's securing permits or maintaining the building code requirements or understanding safety regulations or bylaws. These are things that you rarely really encounter when you're designing on your own or in a small team, but are very critical to real-world practice. Co-op has been a great opportunity to test out different work environments from small to large firms and across various fields, whether it's architecture, urban design, or related disciplines. It's an experience I highly recommend, even if it may extend your graduation timeline slightly. I believe it pays off. The skills and lessons I've gained will carry into my fourth year and beyond, whether for graduate school or for securing a full-time role. I wish you all the best and encourage you to take advantage of opportunities like this to grow and discover your passions.
So, it's very good. Thank you. I wrote, she was a student of mine in the ethics class, and I said, Yamna, could you come talk to her? And she said, I'd love to, but I'm in Alberta, so I'll send a video. So there you go. So I'm going to spend just a minute talking about post-BDes career opportunities, because that might be of some interest both to the parents as well as the students. So design education is more than simply to learn to design. It's actually really excellent training for the knowledge economy. And the reason is that it's project-focused, it's collaborative, it's hands-on, and it's experiential learning. And these are all skills that actually can't be easily replaced by AI or any of the other kind of automated robots that are trying to take our jobs. It's also, you learn to create compelling visions that address global issues. So it's actually really apropos not just of design, but to come up with proposals and to practice both developing compelling proposals and then also presenting them to mixed audiences is really valuable training across a whole range of careers. But we can say that after graduation, many of our students go on to do graduate degrees in either architecture, landscape architecture, or urban planning. And that's because if you want to be an architect or a landscape architect or an urban planner, it requires a license, which requires a professional degree. So as a BDES, the BDES program is not a professional program. So I want to be clear about this. You don't graduate to become an architect. It's excellent training to graduate and go to a graduate degree in architecture to get your practical component and then get a license. And the same is true of landscape architecture. So there are no accredited professional programs at the undergraduate level in Canada. So we're not unique there, but I just want to be clear because sometimes there's a kind of confusion around professional school, which we have graduate programs in. So we have programs in both architecture and landscape architecture, as well as urban planning, where you can do it after BDES if you want to be a licensed architect or a landscape architect. But even if you don't go on to graduate school, it's excellent training, as I mentioned, for the knowledge economy. So entrepreneurship, film, fashion, industrial design, historic building restoration, preservation, set design, graphic design, furniture design. We've had students that go on to game design and user interface, UI, UX design. So a whole range of different careers are open to you. And as I mentioned, if you do want to become a licensed professional in the design fields in architecture or landscape architecture, this is the path you follow. You first complete the BDES program, then go on to 2 to 3 years of graduate, either at UBC or elsewhere. Then there's a professional experience requirement. So just like being a doctor requires a kind of internship of a couple of years working for a professional architect, landscape architect, after which you can sit for the licensing exam. So it's a pretty arduous road, but it's one that's well worth taking, and just wanted to make sure you had a clear sense of that. So I imagine some of you may have come wanting information about how to get into the program, and so I'll spend a little bit of time on this, and then it'll be time for questions. So the first thing is to get into BDES, you first need to establish an account and apply to UBC through the BC Education Portal. So you're going to do that. You can get a link on the UBC SALA website. We'll give you a link that takes you to the BC Ed, and you'll notice that application is due on January 15th. So that's the general website to get into undergraduate programs at UBC. Once you apply for that and send in your application, you should receive back an email. It won't be immediate. This is the government after all, so it'll take a few days. But you should, within a week, you should receive an email that links you to actually the supplementary materials. And these are unique to the School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, to the BDES program. And these consist of 3 things: a video interview, a creative challenge. We've changed the wording a little bit to make it a little friendlier. This is the older website. And then a resume. And you might ask, what are we looking for in the video interview? Well, it's a small program, and so we're trying to get a sense of you, what your interests are, a personal take on a space of your direct experience. You don't need to be an expert in architecture and landscape architecture. If you've done some reading and you want to bring those ideas in, that's fine. But you could give part of the video interview could be about your bathroom. It's okay. Personal is good. We just want to get a sense of you and what drives you. So a succinct personal response. It's only about a 2-minute long video, so it's got to be short. Difficult. Brevity is difficult. So the design challenge is a little bit different. So in this, we're going to challenge you to, I can't disclose what the design challenge is yet. You have to go to the website to see, but it's a short challenge. It's actually a set of 3 challenges that are kind of mini challenges that give us a sense of how you solve a design problem. And so again, this is about your kind of personal, what drives you. So we're looking for creative spatial thinking. So how you approach space, the fundamental kind of idea of a spatial designer, gives you a chance to kind of try that out, gives us a chance to see how you respond. Things you might want to think about are composition. So how a space is organized, the craft, so the quality of workmanship. You don't want to have a great idea and then execute it so sloppily that we kind of look at all the details and the ways that things don't kind of fit together and get distracted. So craft is important. And then lastly, and I really want to draw your attention to this because this sometimes slips by people, we're looking also at how you present your ideas on the page. So think carefully about the layout of the page itself. It's not just what you did, but it's how you're representing it, because that tells us it's a lot of what we do as architects, landscape architects, and urban designers is actually kind of try to communicate ideas, not only the ideas themselves, but even how the page is laid out. You can think about it as being like a portfolio spread that way. So presentation matters. And hopefully this gives you some idea of what we're looking for there. And then lastly, resume, no magic here. We're just trying to get a sense of the kind of the full you. So you might want to mention awards and accolades if you've won them. If you don't have them, that's okay too. If you've done some work and you have some useful work experience, you can list that. Volunteer work, clubs, travel and hobbies, anything that kind of gives us a fuller sense of you, your skills, and what you might bring as a student at BDES. So if you have questions during that process, you can email des@sala.ubc.ca. The closer it gets to the deadline, the longer you can expect the response time might take, because lots of people have questions. So better to get on there early and ask your questions early if you have them, or even in just a minute. So I guess the last thing, this is kind of a funny note to end on actually, but I'd just like to say that we can't accept all the students that we would like to. Partly because we have very low student to professor ratios. So it's a very intensive program in terms of the kind of professor hours. So we can't accept everybody. We accept 45 students for year one. We accept another 15 students as transfers at the start of year two. And what that means is, hopefully we'll be able to grow the program in the future because there's a tremendous demand for it. I think that recognizes the value of the education. But what it means is if you don't get in this time around, and I'm sorry to say that may be some of you, I wish we could take everyone because I'm so committed to the importance of design education. But if you don't get in the first year, that transfer in is an option that you can pursue for the second year. And you can either do that from UBC or from other area institutions like SFU, Langara, or Douglas, a whole range of local institutions. I do recommend if you want to pursue that route, look carefully at the year one BDES curriculum and make sure you've kind of fulfilled those in your first year, wherever you take it, because that helps with the transfer in. And with that, I think I will thank you for your patience. We're running a little behind, but with that, we'll take some questions and then we'll head over to the studios. So who has a question? Yes.
On the website,
Yes.
there were 50 students first year. Why are you saying 45?
Yeah, so that's that fluctuates a little bit year by year, and this might be actually out of date. So I would go by what's on the website. So it could be, yeah, I would say it's probably 50. Thank you for keeping me honest on that point. But yeah, other questions at the back. We take generally students apply to UBC after grade 12. So the academic requirements are the basic requirements are those required by UBC. And so you can check the UBC, the general UBC requirements are what we go by as minimum requirements. Good question. Yes.
Do you have a minimum requirement for credit for year that you have to do?
So in order to graduate in 4 years, we do have minimum credit requirements to progress through the program according to the plan. In some cases, if students, have trouble, they may wind up taking an extra year. But it's a pretty rigorous program. So to graduate in the 4 years, or more than 4 if you do a co-op, requires the minimum credits. So yes. Yes, I'm sorry, you had your hand up there in purple. Oh, I think, yes, yeah, sorry, yeah.
How many students applied last year? Considering we only take them? And how many are estimated to apply this
The estimated last year is the best guess for what it's going to be next year. It fluctuates a bit year to year, but we had around 600 students applying last year. So yeah, like I say, we wish we have a space problem, or we would grow the program immediately. It hurts me that we can't take more students. Yeah.
So let's say if you're transferred to a second year and
Yes.
if you're not you don't get in, would you be considered to the first year? Like through the process of like,
Boy, that's kind of a 400 level question. Marie, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, yes.
You could apply for the first year.
Yeah, if you don't satisfy the requirements for the secondary transfer, you will automatically be in the first
So
year.
there's your answer. If you don't have the requisite courses, you'll be bumped into the general pool for year one intake. Yeah, good question. Yes.
For non-traditional students, I understand that you are saying that there's a plan for 4 years. For part-time students, how does that work? Is there a part-time option?
I'm getting that there is not a part-time option, and I think that has to do partly with the fact that a lot of the projects are collaborative, and it's difficult to, I mean, it's a fair question, and I'm sorry I don't have a better answer, but at this time, no. Yeah.
So, the general application for UBC is due by Jan 15.
Correct.
And then you said in a week, we'll get kind of the specifics for SALA. What's the deadline for that?
January 31st for the SALA. It should come back. I was warned that if I said you would get an email immediately, we would get inundated with a flood of emails saying, I haven't received the thing. It should come within a couple of days, Tara, is that fair?
Yeah, two to three business days.
2 to 3
We have been
business
having-
days. Yeah,
I will, sorry.
it's the government,
We
yeah.
have been having a few issues, so if you're somebody who's applied and it's been more than a week and you haven't received that email, I would say reach out to us and we can look into it. It's the undergraduate admissions office that sends that email, and there seems to be a bit of a glitch, so certainly reach out, but it should be 2 to 3 business days after you apply.
Sorry, just to follow up on that. So that gives them like less than 2 weeks to meet the requirements. But if somebody applied, let's say in December, would they still like wait till the Jan 15 to get kind of the requirements for SALA? Would they get those requirements then in December?
Excellent
Like,
question.
the sooner you apply, the longer you have to do it.
Okay.
So if you're somebody who chooses to apply in January, then that's a consequence of that choice. So you can apply right now and you could be working on it all the way through to January.
Good question. Yeah, we have one up here front. Yeah.
My impression is that some of the schools that have masters in architecture across Canada require you to have a bachelor in design architecture, and I'm just told, is it increasingly the case that if you want to go to a master's, that you really must or should be doing a bachelor's, or is it a pretty legitimate pathway to come in from a different area entirely?
I didn't come up in the Canadian system, but my own personal, I did a liberal arts background as an undergraduate and went to graduate school in architecture. Took a little bit longer to get through the program, but most master's programs, UBC is the same. It is not a prerequisite to do the BDes program to get into a graduate degree. If things go well, particularly if you do a co-op, you'll get in with advanced standing. So you should be able to complete the master's program in 2.5 years because you come in as an advanced placement student if you have a background, say you do a BDes and gain some work experience. So it will be a slightly faster track. But it is possible to go, we take from a wide range of disciplines into the master's program. That's a good
You don't
question.
see that like directionally changing.
I would say the bigger directional change in the last 10 years has been phasing out. There was a time when you could there was a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture, what was called a B-Arc. That would actually, you could do the B-Arc and then you could gain some professional experience and sit for the exams. That's no longer the case in all but a very few programs that have been grandfathered in. So the general trend is toward master's level education as a precursor to licensure after a practical component. So that's the shift that's happened. But yeah, it's not a prerequisite. So you can take other paths to get to the graduate program. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
When you were saying about the email, the confirmation email from the government, you said.
Yes.
Was that like a confirmation or the creative test? My question is, how long
No.
does it take to get the creative test email?
So I'll have to defer to Tara, but like you get the confirmation
It's like
and
those
then
are
that.
the same thing. So it's a undergraduate admission sends you an email saying, we're confirming that we received your application. They give you next steps and then it says to access the supplemental, this is how you get to it.
And basically, we'll give you a link into the SALA system that has the creative test elements.
Because in my case, I did receive the confirmation email, but it said, wait for next emails for the following person.
how early did you apply? Here, I had to make it-
I would say
yeah,
you're
you
a
may have,
candidate, like our email is
Yeah.
des@sala.ubc.ca. You can find it on the website. I think you're a great candidate to just reach out and we can look to make sure nothing's gone on.
Okay.
Marie, do you have a question or a comment?
No, I have a
Yeah.
comment to
Okay.
this. There are two emails you will be receiving. One will come right away, it's the confirmation that they received your application. And then in 2 to 3 business days, you should get another email with the link to the supplemental application.
Okay,
So
so
there
they're
are
gonna
two
do that
emails
back,
important
two
to
emails? Two emails, the first acknowledges receipt and the second will be a few days later that should have a link. If you don't get those, then by all means, email the desk at UBC. Yeah.
Which one is more heavily related to
Interesting question. Which is weighted more? We can, I mean, I would say the creative test, I mean, they're both important because it's a small program, and so we really want to have a sense of who, you know, like what drives you. We're looking really at the bottom, we're looking for people that want to engage with design. They would do it whether they were in the program or not. They're not in it to check boxes or even get grades, although grades do, you know, they are important to our students. But more that you're drawn toward design for its own sake, and that this is something that you really are deeply committed to. And so I think you can kind of express different sides of that through the design challenge. It's the rigor with which you approach it, and also the you know, the kind of short essay or video interview is kind of like a different side of that, just to hear what drives you, you know, yeah. So hopefully that answers that. Take a few more and then we should get over to the studio. Maybe we've heard from you. I'll go to one at the back and we'll get back to you. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
How much is there like writing description we should keep on there, or should we more let just images do the work?
Really great question. I think you're asking just the right question. So you can think about it like, I would think about it sort of like you read a magazine. You guys read magazines? No, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you still read magazines. Nobody seems to read books anymore. It hurts my heart. But if you read a magazine, they often have things like called pull quotes, which is like where the text is like, they have topic headings that'll be bigger and bolder, and they'll have a kind of pull quote, which is like one important sentence that they make a little bit bigger. And so they use a lot of graphic design to communicate content. So if you're leafing through it, you can kind of get the main message right away. And then if you're curious, you can read further. What doesn't work so well in that kind of scenario, keep in mind, there's like, you know, a lot of these applications is if you've got a really dense block of text, it might be really important to you, but you've got to think about the person on the other end that's going through a lot of these things. So if you can really kind of, you know, communicate in a graphically punchy style that helps somebody get the idea quickly, and then, you know, you include a little more, that's fine too, as long as it, you know, you don't have to kind of sift through a paragraph and a half, you know, to get to the meat of the matter. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then just thinking about even the position of the text on the page, where it is, you know, you can look at well-designed, you know, look at some, well, you have to pick the architecture magazine carefully because some of them aren't so well laid out, but many of them have very good layout. You know, you can look at graphic design and try to kind of follow some of the cues there. Great question. Can we take 2 more? We had, sorry, I was going to get back to you in purple. Yeah.
Yes, make, and you guys notice during interview.
Oh, that's a juicy one. That's a juicy one. Lincoln Logs, Legos, those, we get a lot of those, you know, it's very natural, like, but a lot of people grew up, you know, playing with Legos, so maybe you could go a little deeper. Probably the bigger one after that, pictures of cats tend to get a little played out. The internet loves cats, but we love them less now. You know, I feel for everybody's, you know, doing their best, but I guess probably on a different level would be people that are, or projects where somebody did a lot of work and they thought a lot about the answer to the creative test, but then they just kind of threw it on the page without thinking about it, passed it in. You know, or a really great idea that's done really sloppily, so the craft isn't so careful. You know, we're looking for a certain level of finish, you know, and I mean, that communicates a care and willingness to really kind of go to the mat for it. So I would say, you know, careful work, showing process is a good idea, But again, think carefully about how you're representing the process. So you're creating a kind of visual story that's easy to follow. If you just throw it up on the page again, it's kind of like, well, you know, maybe it was a great process, but it's hard to follow and it looks like a mess on the page. So thinking about the page itself as an opportunity to design is a big one. That's a great question. Yeah.
Sure.
We take one more and then, yeah, no,
Can I give you
no.
one from online?
Oh,
I think we're okay.
please.
We can,
Yeah.
we can go another 5 minutes.
You go 5 minutes. Can you guys go 5 minutes? The pizza's gonna get cold, is
I
it?
think we're okay, because
Okay.
they just wrote me and they just finished reviews, so they're just setting up.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I have
Design sometimes doesn't always go directly on time. Sorry, the creative process.
I have a line that said that they noticed on our website, there were mentions of Vancouver as a lab, and they were hoping that we could elaborate on the opportunities to use the city of Vancouver as a learning resource.
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, so you may have noticed that we're in a crucible of affordability and urbanism. So as a city poised on the edge of the Pacific Rim, we have a tremendous opportunity to look at kind of coming trends in housing. So we're actually, we do a lot of site visits. There's a lot of construction going on here. So we visit construction sites to learn about how that happens. We do design build projects with local communities, inclusive sometimes out on the islands, the Gulf Islands. So I would say we use the city a lot, and we actually have a very active program within the city, a thing called the Urbanarium, where we're actually debating urban issues. This tends to be less student-facing, although students, of course, we love it when students come to that. So really great question, and all sorts of intersections with the local place. You've got a question.
In this program, by chance, do we like have any opportunities where we can like help build something outside of Canada or like somewhere far in Canada, but not in Vancouver only?
Yes. So what you would be talking about typically is design build. We haven't formalized that as a part of the curriculum because it sometimes is difficult to predict exactly. It depends on real clients out in the world, and they tend to be, you know, finding funding for them is another necessity. I would say we haven't done any that are outside of BC. Most of them are in the lower, I think all of them have been in the lower mainland. But we have built on, you know, we were working for a while out on the islands, Gambier Island, Keats Island. We've done ones in the downtown east side. We've done some right here on campus. So we tend to be within sort of like a 4 or 5 hour drive or boat ride. The islands are tricky to work on because you have to arrange barges, but that turns into kind of an interesting aspect of the projects too. So, you know, never say never. We might do it, but the kind of practical logistical things, you know, even working on the islands could be tricky. But so I would say lower mainland, yeah. Over here, you had Do you know how many applicants we get for the 15 spots?
Around 60. We'll get more than that, but when we actually drill down and say who has the courses that they need to get into year 2, it's around 50 to 60. Last year we ended up, I think, offering to 14. Normally at year 2, we get almost everybody we offer accepts the offer. So I think it was 14 or 15.
But if you think about those numbers, we offer that option as a way to try to at least address some of the people that didn't get in the first intake. The odds are much better. It's sort of like 3 to 1 as opposed to kind of, you know, 1 in 10, or less, fewer. Another question? Anything else from online?
Nope.
No? Okay. Let's go get something to eat and go see the design studio. Thank you for listening and thanks for your patience.